I do not believe that the comments that you are referring to have relevance for this particular hearing, but here's what I will say. This is an administration that is threatening judges in addition to other people that he disagrees with. So, yes, if your question is, do I defend judges? Am I worried about judges' security? I am. I am worried about this administration essentially threatening those judges.
I want to talk with you, Ms. Hemingway.
The moment I heard Senator Blackburn open her mouth, I knew exactly what we were in for. Another performance where outrage replaces evidence, where projection replaces principle, and where the people who scream the loudest about free speech are the same ones trying to control the narrative by silencing anyone who threatens their political comfort zone. But what happened in this hearing wasn't just hypocrisy. It was a masterclass in manufactured panic, weaponized victimhood, and the strategic erasure of the real threats to democracy. Welcome back to True Liberty, where we cut through the noise, break the script, and dive straight into the truth they hope you're too exhausted to notice. If you're watching this, you are part of a growing community of people who refuse to let propaganda pass for politics. So before we go any further, hit that subscribe button. Not because it helps the algorithm, but because every day, more and more of us are refusing to let bad faith actors rewrite reality. You're not joining a channel. You're joining a movement determined to defend democracy, protect civil rights, and demand accountability from the powerful. Now, let's go deeper, because what you just watched demands more than a surface-level reaction.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to each of you for taking your time to be here today. Dr. Franks, we're here to talk about free speech, correct?
Yes.
And we're here to talk about that being a fundamental right guaranteed by the Constitution, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the Supreme Court plays an essential role in guaranteeing those constitutional rights, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to talk to you about a tweet that you had in January 2024. The Supreme Court is a death panel. Is that your opinion?
In the context of this hearing, I think it is important to emphasize why I am here, which is to talk about my views on the First Amendment.
No. That's not what I asked you. Do you think the Supreme Court is a death panel?
In the context of the cases that, not for free speech, no, that was not the context of that particular
Oh my goodness, okay. Well, it appears that you see the Supreme Court as a death panel, and that is some of the same rhetoric that unfortunately we continue to hear from some on the left who are trying to villainize justices who are doing their job. And I would like to just ask you, knowing that you have put this out, that the Supreme Court is a death panel, then let me ask you this. Do you look at Justices Sotomayor, Kagan, Jackson as members of the death panel, or is this just the justices that you disagree with?
I do not believe that the comments that you are referring to have relevance for this particular hearing, but here's what I will say. This is an administration that is threatening judges in addition to other people that he disagrees with. So, yes, if your question is, do I defend judges? Am I worried about judges' security? I am. I am worried about this administration essentially threatening those judges.
I want to talk with you, Ms. Hemingway.
Here's the rehook. When a politician claims to defend free speech while interrogating someone over a tweet, you already know the conversation isn't about freedom. It's about control. Senator Blackburn kicks this entire thing off by dragging Dr. Franks into a gotcha routine about a tweet calling the Supreme Court a death panel. And the moment she does it, you can practically see the strategy unfolding. This isn't about the First Amendment. This isn't about constitutional rights. This is about narrative manipulation. Instead of scrutinizing how power operates, she redirects public attention toward a single phrase and repackages it as an existential attack on conservative justices.
You, Ms. Hemingway, about the State Department's use of the Global Engagement Center to censor news outlets like the Daily Wire and the Federalist. I know that this is something that you have had to deal with. And Daily Wire is located in Tennessee. We're proud of them. We are delighted that they chose to move from California over to Tennessee. And it is my understanding that the Global Engagement Center was created to counter messaging from bad actors, including terrorist groups, but the Biden administration weaponized it to silence conservative groups. And what has the censorship, I call it the censorship industrial complex, what do you think they're trying to hide when it targets outlets like the Federalist and the Daily Wire?
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. Yes, our reporter, Margot Cleveland, who's our senior legal writer, uncovered through her reporting facets of the censorship industrial complex and learned that the State Department was one of the federal entities that was engaging with non-governmental organizations and other entities in big tech to market, promote censorship tools and blacklists, which were then used against my publication, The Federalist, and also The Daily Wire. Publications that are a threat to the reigning orthodoxies are targeted by the censorship industrial complex. They want to exist without people pointing out their lies or the fact that there are really important debates. And so we are suing the State Department for that, and it is ongoing, this support of the censorship industrial complex. It is the bureaucracy, really, which perpetuates this even more than a particular administration.
Yes, and I think it's so important to note that robust, respectful, bipartisan debate adds to our freedom, helps to keep us free, and allows that debate in the public square. And when you have an entity that becomes weaponized and shuts down one side of that speech and only allows speech with which it completely agrees, that is when you have that censorship writ large. My time expires. Professor Turley, I have a question I will submit to you for the record. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you for being with us today. I'd like to start with you, Ms. Hemingway.
Let's expose the contradiction. You cannot claim to be the champion of free expression while policing the emotional tone of criticism directed at unelected officials with lifetime power. That is not advocacy. That is authoritarian energy in disguise. Dr. Franks tries to steer the conversation back to the topic at hand: free speech, judicial threats, genuine First Amendment concerns. But Blackburn refuses to let go, because the real purpose of her questioning is rhetorical theater. She wants the clip, not the truth. Then we get the pivot to Molly Hemingway, where the talking points become even more predictable. Suddenly, the State Department's Global Engagement Center, an agency specifically created to counter disinformation from foreign adversaries, is magically transformed into an anti-conservative censorship machine. Never mind that no evidence is presented. Never mind that the claims rely entirely on insinuation. Never mind that the loudest voices complaining about censorship are the ones dominating the national media ecosystem. Instead, we get the same familiar script. Conservatives are the victims, institutions are the enemy, and accountability is oppression. But let's talk about what's really going on here. When conservatives cry censorship, they're often talking about their inability to spread disinformation without challenge. They're talking about editorial decisions, not government suppression. They're talking about the fact that private platforms and independent institutions refuse to launder their narratives unchecked. And they're talking about the discomfort that comes when their claims collide with verifiable reality. And this is where the deeper context matters. Free speech doesn't exist in a vacuum. Power shapes who gets heard, whose narratives dominate, and whose voices get marginalized. For decades, right-wing media empires have spent billions constructing a political ecosystem built on outrage, grievance, and fear. They manufacture crises to distract from the real issues: economic inequality, labor exploitation, attacks on reproductive rights, environmental collapse, systemic racism, the erosion of democratic norms. And when someone points out that their narratives are built on falsehoods, they scream censorship. This is the sleight of hand. Conservative politicians accuse others of weaponization, while openly weaponizing congressional hearings to intimidate critics and elevate political allies. They claim to defend the Constitution while undermining its core protections. They lament threats to judges while justifying political violence. They invoke the First Amendment while demanding immunity from accountability. Senator Blackburn wants you focused on a tweet so you don't look at the actual power dynamics at play. She wants to frame criticism as persecution because it keeps the base emotionally activated. It's fear politics, plain and simple. But we don't get better as a country by coddling the powerful. We get better by challenging them. We get stronger by telling the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. A democracy depends on informed citizens, not curated outrage. It depends on free expression, yes, but also on structural accountability, civic responsibility, and moral clarity. At the end of the day, this hearing wasn't about protecting free speech. It was about controlling the narrative. And if we want a society rooted in justice, equity, and genuine liberty, we have to stop letting manufactured scandals overshadow systemic failures. We have to recognize when political theatrics are being used to distract from real issues. And we have to stay vigilant, because misinformation isn't just a talking point. It's a threat to democracy itself. If you're still here, it's because you care about more than spectacle. You care about truth. You care about justice. You care about the future of this country. And on this channel, we fight for all of that every single day. Stay loud, stay informed, stay courageous.